And it's the Humble Heretics podcast. Boy, Brad. Jonathan's not here. He's not calling in anything like that today, so it's just me flying solo. I think I'm just going to make this a rant podcast. I'm just going to just think of something and just go on a tirade. It might not be the most educated thing. It just might be just a whole bunch of foolishness. But at this point, it's kind of more for your entertainment and just general content creation, because, a rant and saying something that isn't, very well thought out and it's kind of counterintuitive, counter to, what we're about here on the show and having meaningful discussion. A good quality rant does have a way of generating meaningful discussion, and I am going to go on one. And I'm going to go on one that I've been thinking about lately, and it is, I've been thinking about girls who think calling themselves a bad bitch is cute. Yep. Girls who call themselves a bad bitch think themselves are cute. I think that's probably the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my entire life. That someone would think, oh yeah, I'm a bitch. I'm a bad bitch. That's somehow attractive. There's that trend going around social media. He's a 10, but, insert some perceived vice. Like, he's a 10, but he puts ketchup on his macaroni and cheese. Something strange like that. Well, here's what I'm going to say. She's a 10, but she's a bad bitch. And that is, in my book, in my estimation, that is just an awful thing to say about yourself. Because it seems to me that the whole notion of the bad bitch comes with a whole set of personality problems. Which is, I'm strong, I'm independent, and I've got a really bad attitude about the men around me because screw men, they're so mean and immature. Yeah, that's the whole point. I'm being immature right now to put a whole thing on it, because people just suck in general. I've come to this conclusion that people just suck in general. So yeah, men suck, but I mean, women suck just as bad. And the whole point of a relationship or ship, depending on, what kind of situation you're in. Hopefully it's not a situationship with a bad bitch, because I feel bad for you fellas. And if you are in a situationship with a Chad or Tyrone, I feel equally bad for you. But here's the thing. There's nothing to applaud with being the prototypical Chad / Tyrone. There's nothing to applaud in the bad bitch, boss babe mentality. Like, don't tell me about it. Just be that person and be humble. Just be you. Like, just be you. And that's all we need. We don't need you to trumpet like your self-perceived virtue onto the entire world. Like, it's ridiculous. Also, using words that are, not bro. The dude, one of the finalists from Love Island, I guess, because I was just on the pictures, I could just quit watching the show because it's just got dumb. That's typically how it goes for me. It's like I'll start watching these trash dating shows, and I'll be like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, I'm loving this. And then it gets really toxic, and I'm like, no, I can't handle this. But I'm enjoying it, but I can't handle it. It's mentally exhausting. And Isaiah, for me, is that mental exhaustion. He's the embodiment of mental exhaustion. I'm not even going to get into, like, Serenity leaving early, because that hurt my feelings a lot. Like, that girl should not have left early. But Isaiah, man, the young man says bro way too much. Said bro way too much. Like, there's no reason to use the word bro as much as he does. Like, I'm pretty sure if you just look at his vocabulary usage, like, bro represents, like, maybe close to 60% of his just conversation. Bro this, bro that, bro. There has to come a time where we can be all, bro this, bro that, bro. But then there's just a time where maybe just acting like an adult would be a beneficial thing. Like choosing more meaningful words and not putting on a front of I'm a bad boy and just super shallowness is just, we kind of just grow up a little bit. And I felt kind of dirty for even like all my spurts of immaturity too. I'm like, ew, is that what that looks like? That's disgusting. Like using childish word choices and acting like you're a frat boy is just not a way to be a young man looking out for love. And to me, Isaiah is the perfect embodiment of that. And then I'll say, I'll get into Courtney too. She also seemed a little shallow to me as well. And she was shallow on the other direction. I started to like her a little bit. Like I was like, okay, maybe she's got a little hidden depths on her, but all the sex talk, all the making out talk, I'm like, listen, yes, we know your boobs are big. We know your boobs are fake. We know your lips are Botox injected. But good grief, kid, can you just tell us about something more important, something more meaningful? But these garbage dating shows like Love Island, like The Bachelor and The Bachelorette, they aren't predicated on actual love. They're predicated on lust, and that's what makes them so great is because of how toxic they are. And all you're just doing is watching a bunch of just human dragons going after each other. And they're just have this carnivore rage of lust for one another, and it's flat out ridiculous. As my mother's coming over here with a little dragon miniature thing and giving me a little kiss on the cheek with it. It's mind-boggling. Love Island was so shallow. I was thinking that if this was actually Love Island, it would be so boring. It'd be one of the most least watched shows on the entire cable television because people would be doing things that are actually genuine versus using the word genuine and connection in the most shallow way, meaningless way possible. Like, hey, we've got this great connection. We should explore it much more. I just want to see where your head at. Can we go for a chat? I just want to explore this connection. And you're just sitting there like, well, what the hell does connection even freaking mean at the end of the day? And I got thinking about it, and I'll have to say, I hate the word connection now. Like, it's completely devoid of any meaningfulness whatsoever. And then I got thinking about, other situations that I had found myself in, and predicating your entire relationship on someone on the genuineness, the authenticity of your connection is another really, really bad idea. Awful idea. Just horrendous, grotesque. Choose a bunch of words that mean very similar things like that. Just pick up a thesaurus look up awful and read off all of its synonyms. That's how terrible and repugnant it is to stake your entire relationship on your connection. Like, there has to be some kind of esotericism that is hidden within this word connection that I'm not understanding. Because it is just so off-putting, so terribly off-putting, very pathetic. Like, connection is what gets you started, right? Like, you look across the room, you see a person, you're attracted to them, and maybe you have high enough testosterone to walk across the room and be like, hey, I think you're really cool. I like you a lot. Maybe we could, hang out or something. And if you know what I just referenced, brownie points to you. I'll just say that. But if the rest of the relationship after that is just revisiting how great of a connection, at least for me, you'll have me going 100%. Like, just you've got to be, you have to be intelligent enough to realize that chemistry, connection, other words that mean similar things in the dating world of realm, whatever it is, those things are what get you in the door. After that, you've got to figure out, trust. Can I trust this person? Can I forgive this person? I mean, forgiveness is probably the biggest part of it. Can I communicate with this person? I mean, there's just so much things, factors that a relationship needs to succeed. But no, connection. That's what we do on Love Island. We pull people aside and, hey, let's go for a chat. Hey, the boy or the girl that I want to couple up with is blah, 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 blah. And it's also on another level pathetic because they're calling each other boy and girl. Like, you guys are grown adults. He's no longer a boy. She's no longer a girl. It's freaking lady or woman or man. But no. We hang on to our youthfulness as long as we can because for some reason, this godforsaken thing called aging is so repulsive to people that any signs of wrinkling in the skin or, just the body, I'm kind of like looking at my some of like the tan that I have and some of like the sunspots that have appeared on my skin over, the brief 32 years of existence that I've had to stumble through this entire thing called the earth and the world and life. Aging is just such a god-awful thing to everyone. And it's probably been a god-awful thing, repulsive thing to people for a long time because we want to cheat death. No what's, ifs, ands, ors, or buts about it whatsoever. We just don't want to die. And there's probably a really good theological reason for why we don't want to die, and it's because, well, God promised us that we are going to die. Like, point blank, period. We broke the law, we sinned, and God said, I'm going to kill you for it. And so the whole thing about it is just trying to make man live as long as possible and to look as young as possible. And trying to avoid that imminent reality, or at least a reminder of that imminent reality of that we are going to croak at some point or another. It just really, up to divine providence at that point whether or not we're going to die young, die middle-aged, or die really, really old. Old or die really old. And when I say really old, I mean like older than Betty White. Rest in peace. Like 99 that's just an unbelievably blessed life. She did some things right to be allowed to live that long. But she did a whole lot of stuff wrong in her life. And it just only goes to prove the mercy of God not to kill her when she was, I don't know, maybe 3 years old. And that in and of itself is kind of a troubling thought to think of as, imagine a world where Betty White died at 3 years old. Like, we wouldn't have had this adorable old lady be America's grandma for so long, right? If Betty White died when she was 3 years old, we would have been screwed. We would not have been able to benefit from all of that wisdom. Instead, we would probably have to be looking to Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart for wisdom. Martha would be helping us out on, all of our practices in the stock market, and Snoop Dogg would, I mean, I don't know what Snoop would do for us. No, we'd get high with Snoop. We'd get high with the D-O-G Snoop Dogg. That's what would happen. But anyways, back to the original thought with the whole shallowness of American dating. The bad bitch is not a bad bitch. Like 9 times out of 10. All she is she's trying to puff her self-esteem up, at least it seems to me, to be this person that she really isn't. Or it's one of those, like, I've been beaten and bruised in relationships so much that, I hate men now, and so I've got to find a way to prop myself up a little bit. And it's very egocentric. It's very narcissistic. Because you push humility to the wayside to be extremely prideful about yourself. You're not that great, right? Like, I'm not that great. There are other Brads out in the universe, out there. Yes, it's true. There aren't any other Brad Autreys like this one that's standing here in the middle of Indianapolis, Indiana. But there are other Brads. There are other guys that have, like, my disposition, my personality. Every other male is just like me. They've got a penis. They are able to inseminate another woman to create another offspring. To create other offsprings. Like, there's just nothing. I'm just completely an unremarkable, like, thing. At the same time, I'm a very remarkable thing because, the good Lord says, that we are fearfully and wonderfully made. So every person has value on that account because we are all fearfully and wonderfully made people. But we don't need to be have this hyperinflated view of ourselves. It's kind of ridiculous. And so what I see going on the bad bitch mentality is it's more of a disposition issue, an issue of disposition. It's they sometimes they have an overinflated sense of self. It seems they seem to live with a greater deal of license, a little bit more high maintenance. High maintenance is not that bad. I mean, for a guy, if he's got a high maintenance wife or whatever, girlfriend, someone that he's going to marry, like, yeah, she's kind of worth the high maintenance because he genuinely loves the woman. So I mean, but it's one of those. It's not. There's high maintenance and there's impossibly high maintenance, and bad bitch is impossibly high maintenance. And then you've got the she's also got incredibly high standards, and then there's hypergamy, and then there's hypergamy, and we've got to realize there is a sense in which hypergamy makes sense. And then there's a sense in which when hypergamy does not make sense. When hypergamy does not make sense is when you've reached the level of the perfect person. And this applies not just for bad bitch, but also applies for Chad and Tyrone. But the thing about Chad and Tyrone is Chad and Tyrone doesn't care about the bad bitch, really. He's in it for sexual conquest. So the economics of a relationship, in regards to a woman wanting a man who's able to support her, makes sense. Like that should be the way it is, but it can't be where it's he has to be 6'5", make $300,000 a year. He can take me on a vacation 2 or 3 times a year, and buy me all the nicest things. Like that's not sensible. It's not how you build a life. Here's another thing: bad bitch is usually an impatient woman. So impatience is certainly not a virtue. Virtue is a good thing about people, and an impatient person is not a virtue. I still have a great deal of impatience left in my life for me as a person. So in that regard, I'm not very virtuous. But there has to be something to be said. There's something that could be said and should be said in regards to having patience in a relationship, being financially poor and building a kingdom with your partner and achieving that financial end, whatever it is that you have set out for yourself, and not quitting when life is hard. But we see that a lot in modern day relationships. Life gets hard and someone wants to quit. Someone wants to just bail on the other person. And you're just sitting there left wondering why the hell is this? Why did I even sign up for this in the beginning? And then eventually you get to the point where it just kind of reproduces itself, where, you have Chad dates a girl. She's the sweetest girl. She's, falls for this guy. She thinks he's amazing. He's the greatest guy ever. And then he runs off on her with another girl. And it happens to this girl once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times. And she's like, in her car with TikTok on, screaming, "I hate men." And now all of a sudden she turns into bad bitch. And I've got really high standards and I can't take crap anymore. And she thinks she's emotionally healed, but some of the scarring that's still there gets projected on the next guy. And so when she becomes bad bitch, she projects out. There's a guy then who isn't a Chad or Tyrone, and he falls madly in love with her, and she projects all that stuff onto him. And then that happens to him once, twice, 3 times, and he's like, "Well, screw that." He might even gets married to one of these women that he's fallen in love with, and then they leave him, they divorce him, they might even have a kid, and at that point he loses like half of all of his stuff to her, and he gets burned out, and he's like, "Well, there's no point in marriage for me now, so I'm just gonna go on a tirade of concupiscence and conquest." And he doesn't give a rat's ass about any female that he's with there on after, because, well, bad bitch broke his heart, and then the cycle just repeats itself. You see where I'm going with this logically, I hope. I kind of just like took the words out of my own mouth. I mean, just kind of just speechless, just thinking about the whole thing. And so, while there's this whole stream of negativity, I would add this, and it's one of those things where if you feel tempted to just give up on those things, that it really, truly isn't as bad. No, actually, I wouldn't say that. It is as bad as it seems. But I think it's always a good thing to let your heart dare to hope again, to open up and to hopefully find someone who's actually worth a damn, and to fall in love with that person, to actually have a companion to walk through life with in this crazy, insane world that we live in. But relationships today are just they lose their meaningfulness very quickly, and I think the culprit to this is probably the sexual revolution of the '60s, where there is this sort of view of patriarchy that was propagated. The woman was liberated sexually, and it kind of sent us on this path of inevitable train wreck, where now everyone of all sexes are being just absolutely just getting railed hard, relationally speaking, and now all we have to show for this is just a bunch of jacked up people running around with mental health issues. And I mean, the only other thing, sexual liberation is like my grandparents' age. So really it's my grandparents' fault for giving us the sexual revolution. And then it gets pushed forward with the following generation after that. And so now you get to, the generation that's right before me. I'm a millennial, and millennials, and then, millennials and the Gen Z men represent the lowest testosterone levels in males in like human history, period. And then we've got social media where, it's easy for a woman to go and make a quick buck off of her beauty and her sexuality, and have this hyper-inflated sense of self, which leads to her being a bad bitch. And then that, in and of itself, kind of lends itself to running into this Chad and Tyrone situations, when there probably wasn't even a real Chad and Tyrone situation going on in the first place, because, she has a hyper-inflated sense of self. This guy was in love with her, but because he didn't meet some fictitious level of standards that she has for him, she kind of just either didn't reciprocate, or she kind of half-heartedly did it, and like he just stopped caring and moved on. And now, she's on the bathroom floor, crying, weeping, trying to understand what the hell's going on. And then by the time this cycle's repeated itself over and over and over and over again, ad nauseum, ad absurdum, ad infinitum, just add all these things onto it. All these connections that she's genuine connections, air quotes, massive air quotes, that she's had over these years, or he has had. I mean, it's not a one-way street. It's definitely a two-way street. Men are garbage, and so are women. That's what happens when you have 100% sinfulness rate in the human race. Is everyone's just genuinely trash, and we treat each other like trash, and we're all here like, well, yeah, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Well, no, love them like you love yourself, and you love yourself a lot. Like you make yourself an idol, so might as well love that person almost to an idolatrous level as well, and then maybe something will go a little bit better. But no, we treat each other like garbage, and then we have these false expectations of one another, and I'm guilty of that too. And I could be better at getting over some of those expectations, some of those other points of, I don't know. Just lower your expectations, man. Lower those standards, and it's not lower them to like an absurdly stupid point, right? Like, if you're a lady and you're listening to this, it's not one of those like, well, I will marry a man who's making $30,000 a year, and he's not very ambitious. He's not ambitious whatsoever. I'm gonna date him and marry him. Like, that's stupid. Don't do that. Right? Like, but if he's like making $30,000 a year and he's very ambitious, he's addressing day. He's doing all these things that he's trying to make moves. He's trying to better himself. Like, that's a dude you make a life with, right? And maybe she's very family oriented, but she's also a career woman, right? And she's taken this career path for a little while because it gives her skills. But she eventually does want to start a family, and then, when the kids are older, go back to work or something like that. That's not necessarily an awful thing, but that's on a each individual relationship basis. But to go back to it, if you find yourself a person that find themselves in a chatter tyrone can recover. They can come out of that, because that can get fixed. I just don't know if the bad bitch is someone that can come out of that, who can survive that. Because once they've gone there, it seems like that they've hit a path of no return. And, for those of you that are listening to this, do you agree? Do you think that's the case? Is that, is it possible to recover from being a bad bitch and daring to believe in love again? Is it possible to come back from being a chatter tyrone and believing in love again? I'd be interested to hear what you guys have to say. Our Twitter handle is Humble Heretics 2, and Instagram is Humble Heretics. So all you have to do is just go onto one of those platforms and kind of just give us a shout and tell us what you think. In those regards. So, I'm gonna kind of like leave it right there at that, and I'm gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, and I'm back. So we have that. Relationships, commitment, communication, forgiveness, love, all those things. Love endures all things, hopes all things. It forgives, it listens, it's kind, it's patient. And those are the virtues that one needs for a loving relationship. I saw a thing that where someone said, love is not all you need in a relationship. Well, I said I disagree. Love endures all things. Love lasts, right? And so we had a recent episode where we kind of talked about this, right? Sometimes you've got dumb people. You've got smart people, and you've got just freaking geniuses, right? Dumb people, you can say a pithy line, and it won't make sense to them, right? Like, dumb people and average people probably aren't going to pick up on some of these things, like, love God and do as you please. Like, that's a time bomb. A smart person is going to operate on a level like, okay, yeah, I kind of see, ooh, that was clever. And the intelligent person is going to be able to, like, just that genius is just going to be able to pick up on that statement and already know where its nuances are at and run with it, right? So, like, with the love God and do as you please, right? Love God. So, love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Well, if you love God first, that means you're probably going to care about your neighbor second. So chances are you're not going to steal their car. You're not going to sleep with their wife. You're not going to kill them because you want to sleep with their wife and steal their car and lie about it. Right? Like King David, all the way, almost detail for detail right there. Minus the car part and minus the lying to God part. Because David didn't lie to Samuel, surprisingly. So, anyways, on this video, I said, well, yeah, no, love. That's then the question. The question I was asked is have you? How many times have you been in love? And I said, well, if it hasn't lasted, then it's not love. It's all been lost. All lost, no love. Because love endures all things. And some person's like, well, no, that's not right. Love doesn't endure all things. Like you do, lust can become love. Well, no, because they're categorically not the same, right? That'd be another one to give feedback on. Humble Heretics on Instagram or Humble Heretics 2 on Twitter, on the Humble Heretics Twitter feed. The nuance there is that lust is more me oriented versus the you orientation, right? It's one is about me, one and the other one is about the other person. It's sacrificial. It's putting them above yourself, kind of mentality, right? It's sticking it out through thick and thin. It's this willful persistence to trudge through the ichor, the mire, the sludge of life, to come out together at the crest of the mountains to oversee the glorious valleys that lay below, and to see the sun and all of the what lies below for miles and miles below you, beneath you, right? That love endures all things. But it also entails all of those other virtues that are listed there that we often like to quote there on at weddings. It's patient, it's kind, it hopes all things, it forgives, it endures all things. Like, that is one of the principal definitions of love, is that little passage of this letter that a Roman Jew wrote, 2,000 years ago to people in a city called Corinth. And so we kind of have to understand that when someone says, asks, have you ever been loved, or has there ever been love or lost? Well, no. Yes, it is right to say you've never been loved, because if it hasn't lasted, then it's not love, I think, categorically speaking. Again, you can chime in on this conversation, let us know what you think in regards to that proposition. And so we have all these foundational elements, those things that can find a meaningful and loving relationship and allow for people to come back from being a bad bitch, from being a Chad and Tyrone. It's going to take a little bit of education, right? So we don't want to be broing all the time. We don't want to be talking about the genuineness of our connections with other people, because that's ridiculous. Like, grow up, bro. Grow up, bro. Grow up, bro. I don't want to know about the genuineness of our connection. Like, I'm dumb. I'm a dumb person, right? But a broken clock is right twice a day. And I do know that a little bit of maturity, a little bit of commitment, a little bit of communication, a little bit of all these things, and just a smidge of just daring to hope that things can turn out better in your favor one day, is enough to kind of stave off having to go through this wretched transformation into some kind of withered old hag who's just all this curmudgeon-y attitude against anything that's love or the opposite sex. It's kind of ridiculous, and it's understandable, but it's still ridiculous. Focus on yourself, love yourself, care for yourself, take care of your mental health. Lecrae said that you can do all of those things. You can be about self-care and self-care, self-love, self-appreciation here in 2022 and moving forward, without having to need to be resorting to being a raging narcissist. Humility helps a lot. It's recognizing, you're just as fucked up as the next person down the street from you, as your next door neighbor, and that allows for you, that recognition allows for you to be able to relate to that person that lives next door, that lives down the street. It also allows for you to make that commitment to another awful, god-awful person. I saw a little bit of a snippet from Love Island where some girls like, well, men think women are unnatural. Like, that's probably one of the most uneducated things I've ever heard in my entire life, right? We making snap assumptions about what the opposite sex thinks about you and your existence is just insane to me. Like William Shakespeare wrote in Love's Labour's Lost that women are the arts, the books, the academes, that they are the still right Promethean fire. If you don't know what still right Promethean fire is, it just means they are the birthing element of human. They are the ultimate source of inspiration. It's written by a dude who lived in the 1600s. But nope, here in 2022, we are running around and we're like, the opposite sex thinks I'm unnatural. I'm unnatural. Like, get a grip, yo. You are very natural. You are beautiful. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And you don't have to let the opposite sex ruin your heart over some just BS. And so I promise there is a way to move forward. But it's not about being a Chad or Tyrone. It's not all this massive, super inflated sense of self-love where you have to call yourself a bad bitch, or you're like, yeah, I'm a Chad, I'm a Tyrone, I'm out here to conquer, every female I see in sight. Don't have to do that. But you should probably be a little bit more seriously minded. If you're going to sleep with her, she better have some kind of level of consideration in your mind of becoming your spouse. He should have some level of potentially becoming a spouse. And you better both have dispositions that are conducive to having a long, loving relationship. Well, but Brad, I don't want a long, loving relationship. I don't even want to get married. Well, then live it up. Eat, drink, be merry, for tomorrow you die. It makes sense. You can do as the Epicureans do. I think that's a poor way of living the good life, is the Epicurean thought. But I'm not going to stop you from doing it, because personally, I don't know you, so I can't really do anything about it, and I'm not gonna try and interfere on that level. But I'd say there's a lot more meaningfulness of having someone to tie yourself to for a lifetime, which that sounds ass backwards, especially to me, someone with my astrological sign, which is Sagittarius, who's, just the most free, don't tie me down sign there is, really. It's kind of weird for someone, if you're into astrology, to say, of my type, to say that. But it is that way. Marriage civilizes a man, and it sets his values, his priorities straight. But can't go about trying to fix the other person. So that's really all I got to say. This, I guess, rant over in a way. So I'm just going to we'll take it out from there. There are ways to connect with us on social media. We got the private Facebook group, Humble Heretics, Instagram handle, Humble Heretics, TikTok, Humble Heretics, Twitter. The Humble Heretics Twitter feed is Humble Heretics 2. I think I created a call-in for us, which is call-in or swell, one of the two. We have one that's Humble Heretics. And then there is a Discord server for Humble Heretics. And there is a Patreon. If you like the content that we're putting out here at Humble Heretics, feel free to go on to Patreon, support us, give us some money monthly to let us know that you like the content that we're putting out. You want to see us get better, as we are currently still trying to work at getting better. That would be much, much appreciated. That is patreon.com/Humble Heretics. This has been another episode of the Humble Heretics podcast with your boy Brad. Y'all have a good evening, and God bless.